Holloway's Academy, where I've taught literature for 20 years, felt like it was torn from the pages of a Gothic novel. A crumbling stone building with broken stained glass windows that fractured sunlight into gray shards, and dusty hallways that seemed to hold their breath. The air carried the scent of cold ash and wilted flowers, like the ghost of an old, extinguished fire. I'm Helen Marlowe, 52, with gray hair and perpetually crooked glasses, a woman of order, neat attendance lists, Shakespeare volumes on my desk, and an always ink pen. But this year, in Class 12C, I found something no poem or schedule could explain. From the start of September, one chair in the third row of 12C stood empty. A splintered wooden desk, its edges worn smooth, as if untouched for years. The students never sat there, didn't even rest their bags on it. If they got too close, a flicker of instinctive haste crossed their eyes. I never touched it either, not out of fear, but from a strange sense that the chair wasn't meant for me. The kids said it belonged to Emma Wilson, a senior who vanished last year, right before graduation. No note, no body, nothing. The police said she might have run away, but the school's whispers told a different story. Emma was lost in this very classroom, as if the earth had opened and swallowed her whole. One day, mid-lesson on Hamlet, Jake, a cocky kid always glued to his phone, was whispering with a friend. Irritated, I decided to sit beside him to shut him up. The empty chair was right next to him. I stepped forward, placed my hand on the desk's backrest, but before I could sit, something stopped me. Not a wall, not a touch, a freezing sensation, like sinking into an icy lake. The air around me thickened, and for a moment, the sound of my heartbeat vanished in my ears. Jake looked up, his face pale, and said, "Ms. Marlowe, don't go there, please." Sophie from across the room muttered, "That's Emma's spot." After that, the students started talking. Sophie said she sometimes felt someone sitting in the chair, but when she looked, it was empty. Lucas, the class clown, said he'd been alone in 12C once and noticed the light around the desk bending, like an invisible lens was perched there. I dismissed it as teenage imagination at first, but then, during roll call one day, something strange happened. I read the names. Jake, Sophie, Lucas. The kids responded. When I reached the end of the list, a sound, not a whisper, not a shout, but a hollow resonance like wind echoing in a cave, came from the corner of the room. Here, everyone froze. Clara, sitting near the chair, clutched her bag and whispered, "Did you hear that?" The second time, I thought someone was pranking me. During another roll call, that same hollow resonance. Here. I snapped, "Enough. Who was that?" But the kids' terrified eyes told me they were as clueless as I was. Lucas mumbled, "Ms. Marlowe, she's always here." Emma. My pulse quickened, but I told myself it was just the class's atmosphere playing tricks. The third time, I couldn't deny it. One rainy evening, with the classroom nearly empty and drops pounding the broken windows, I was taking roll. That resonance came again. Here. This time, I looked straight at the empty chair. For a split second, the light around the desk twisted, like heat rippling over asphalt. Then, a faint shape, like white fabric fluttering in a breeze, settled on the chair and vanished. Clara, still in the room, gasped and bolted out. I approached the desk, but found only a faint scratch on the wood, like the trace of an invisible finger. I never touched the chair again, but Class 12C felt different now. The students were quieter, their eyes drifting to the empty desk during lessons. One day, Sophie left a paper on her desk, a black ink sketch of a faceless girl with long hair, seated on a chair. When I asked her about it, she said, "I don't know, it's like my hand drew it on its own." I took the paper, but when I looked at it at home that night, the ink felt wet, as if freshly drawn. One evening, after class, I stayed in 12C to grade papers. It was past 8 p.m., and the school was drowned in silence. The tattered curtains swayed with a breeze that shouldn't have been there, and the rustle of torn books on the shelves grew louder. Suddenly, an icy sensation, like a cold breath, grazed my shoulder. At that moment, a book slid off my desk and hit the floor without me touching it. I looked up. The light around the empty chair dimmed, and for a second, the air seemed to swirl like an invisible whirlpool. I ran to the door, but as I grabbed the handle, it felt like something was breathing on the other side. I yanked it open, nothing. But when I turned back, a faint line, like white vapor, formed in the air. Stay. Things got stranger. The kids said they sometimes felt the light in 12C thicken, as if hiding something. Mr. Reed, the janitor, said one night he heard a hollow sound in the hallway, like someone blowing into an empty pipe, but when he reached 12C, it was silent. One day, mid-lesson, a book fell from a shelf and opened to a page marked, Emma Wilson absent. The ink looked fresh, as if written moments ago. I decided to dig deeper. In the school's dusty archives, I found a single photo, Emma Wilson, with long hair and hollow eyes staring into some distant void. Her file had one line, June 2023, unexcused absence, did not return. Nothing else. When I showed the photo to Sophie, she stifled a scream and said, "That's her, for my drawing." Now every day in 12C, I feel a void pulling me toward it. Every roll call, I hear that hollow here, louder each time. Sometimes, alone in the room, I feel an icy touch, like an invisible finger brushing my skin, as if saying, "Join." Worst of all, a few nights ago, at home, as I turned off my lamp, the light twisted for a moment, just like in class. In the darkness, I sensed a void standing beside me. A sound, neither whisper nor cry, said, "You too." I can't bear class 12C anymore, but I can't escape it. Every day, I feel Emma, or whatever fills her absence, drawing closer. I don't know where she is or why it wants me. All I know is that empty chair isn't just a seat. It's a chasm, a tear in reality, swallowing me. If you don't find me in 12C one day, it's because I'm gone. Crafton School, where I've spent the last 2 years, was an old building that felt like it was ripped from a horror movie. Winding hallways, cracked stairs, and yellowed lights always flickering on the verge of death. I'm Jason, 16, a junior, and I've always been afraid of getting lost in those halls. Not just because they're dark, but because it feels like something's waiting in them. Everyone at school knows one unspoken rule. Never, under any circumstances, open locker 108. Down in the basement, there was an abandoned hallway no one had used in years. Broken tiles, rusted pipes dripping water, and the stench of rot and wet metal in the air. Burnout bulbs sparked with faint flickers, and every step felt like you were walking outside of time. A row of old lockers lined the wall, most of them rusted and unlocked. Among them, Locker 108 stood out. Its dull green paint was scratched with deep gouges, like someone had clawed at it. No lock, no label, but it always gave you a pressure in your head when you got too close. I first saw it on an autumn day. Ms. Cortez, the grumpy vice principal, sent me to grab an extra chair for class. "There's a storage room in the basement," she said. "Go there." I got lost and ended up in that hallway. The air was oddly heavy, like breathing through a swamp. The bulbs sparked, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. The sound of dripping water echoed in a strange, looping rhythm. Locker 108 was ajar. Not fully, just a narrow gap, like it was beckoning me. My heart raced, but curiosity won. I eased the door open. It wasn't empty. A tattered notebook with a torn leather cover sat in the corner. No name, no label, just a sentence scrawled in black ink on the front. Things I wasn't meant to know. I thought it might be someone's diary. I flip it open. The pages were filled with handwritten sentences in different scripts, like someone had repeated them over and over. One read, "Today Ms. Cortez forgot our class existed again." Another said, "No one heard my voice during lunch." A third warned, "The hallway won't let me go." Some were stranger, like, "The clock in the hall stopped, but I kept moving," or "They're starting to forget me." The final page, in shaky red pen, read, "If you're reading this, it's already too late." Suddenly, the air around me tightened. The bulbs went out with a sharp spark, and the dripping water grew louder, pounding in my ears. I slammed the notebook shut and ran. When I got upstairs, Ms. Cortez was yelling, "Jason, where were you? You've been missing for 2 hours." But I swore I'd only been down there 10 minutes. My phone's clock backed me up. The other kids in the hall gave me weird looks, like something about me was off. The next day, I went back to the hallway, but the door was locked, a rusty new padlock that looked like it had been there for decades. I told the others what I'd found, but no one believed me. A senior, Ben, laughed and said, "Locker 108? The one they say makes people forget you if you open it." I thought he was joking, but his serious eyes told me he might not be. 2 weeks later, things got worse. In the courtyard, I saw a freshman, Tom, staring at a wall, muttering, "Locker 1, it's still calling me." His sunken, pale eyes looked like he hadn't slept in days. When I called his name, he didn't even see me. The next day, Tom was gone. Kids said he vanished, but no one seemed to care. Not even the teachers, who crossed his name off the roster like he never existed. Since then, I felt something change in me. When I walk through the main halls, I catch kids' eyes sliding past me, like they're forgetting who I am. Once in history class, I was answering a question, but the teacher didn't hear me and said, "Anyone else?" The other kids didn't look at me either. My heart froze. That night in my room, a faint sound, like an old tape skipping, came from my closet. I opened it. Nothing was there, but for a split second, I felt a rift in the air, like it was pulling me into an endless nowhere. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I broke the hallway's lock with a metal rod and went back to locker 108. Its door was shut, but I swear I felt an invisible pulse coming from it, like a metal heartbeat. I opened it. The notebook was still there, but now it had a new page in my handwriting, which I swear I didn't write. Jason was in the courtyard today, but no one saw him. At the page's edge, in red pen, a fresh sentence. Now it's her turn. I threw the notebook down and ran, but the hallway felt longer. The bulbs flashed on and off with sharp sparks, and the dripping water sounded like a hollow laugh. When I finally reached the stairs, I was gasping. Ms. Cortez saw me and said, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Like she didn't know me. I checked my phone. The time was 3 hours behind. Now, every day, I feel myself slipping from everyone's sight. Kids mix up my name, teachers skip my name on the roll, and even my mom sometimes stares at me, like she's trying to remember who I am. Worst of all, every night, that skipping tape sound comes from my closet. I can't open it, because I know what's waiting. Locker 108 is calling me, and every day, I feel a piece of me getting lost in that hallway. If you don't find me at Crafton one day, it's because I'm no longer here. Our school, Westridge High, was an old brick building that felt like it had been plucked from a century ago. Its narrow hallways, with cracked walls and cloudy windows, looked more like an abandoned hospital than a place for learning. The air always carried the smell of wet chalk and stale ink, as if someone had opened a notebook 100 years ago and never closed it. I'm Nick, 14 years old, a 9th grader, and I've never liked school. Not because of homework or teachers, but because of a weird feeling that hits me in the hallways. Like something's watching me, even when I'm alone. Classroom 2B was the worst. A small room on the 2nd floor with carved up desks and a blackboard covered in chalk scribbles. An old mirror with a rusted metal frame hung on the wall next to the board. No one knew why it was there. Teachers said it was from years ago, when the school had strange rules. But from the first day, it gave me a bad feeling. Whenever I was alone in 2B, I'd see a shadow in that mirror. A shadow that looked exactly like me. Same backpack, same t-shirt, but it was missing one thing. Its eyes. In their place were just two black voids, like someone had drawn its face with charcoal and erased the eyes. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Who sees their own shadow without eyes in a mirror? But one day, when I was stuck outside the locked classroom after hours, I looked through the door's window, and my heart froze. My shadow, the other me, was inside, walking by my desk, even before I'd opened the door. It had my backpack slung over its shoulder, but its movements, they were jerky, like a puppet pulled by strings. When I unlocked the door, the room was empty. The smell of wet chalk was stronger, and a cold sensation, like standing in a damp basement, settled on my skin. After that, the shadow started mimicking me, but not quite. Whatever I did, the next day in the mirror, it did the same, just a few seconds before me. One day I was spinning my pen in class. In the mirror, my shadow spun its pen first, then I did. Another time, I was setting my backpack down. The shadow dropped its bag first, like it was showing me what I'd do next. Worst of all, whenever I looked into those black voids where its eyes should have been, I felt something pressing inside my head, like a foreign thought trying to claw its way in. A week later, things got weirder. One day, while writing my homework in 2B, I heard a soft screech like nails scraping glass, coming from the mirror. I looked up. My shadow was there, but this time, it was writing on the blackboard. No chalk in its hand, but white lines appeared on their own, forming a single word, closer. My heart pounded. I ran to the board, but when I got there, it was blank, just a smear of fresh chalk, like someone had wiped it with their hand. That night at home, I felt something had shifted. In my room, as I was changing clothes, I caught my shadow in the closet mirror. Not me, but the eyeless one. It was changing its clothes a few seconds before I did. Gasping, I threw a blanket over the mirror. But when I turned back, the blanket was on the floor like someone had yanked it off. From that night on, even at home, I felt the shadow was one step ahead. Mornings when I grabbed my backpack, it felt like someone had already touched it. Once, my math notebook was open, with a chalky line scrawled across it. Me. School wasn't safe anymore. Kids said 2B was always colder than the other rooms, even in summer. One kid, Lucas, said when he was alone in there, he felt someone standing behind him, but when he turned, it was just a mirror. Even the teachers seemed scared of 2B. Miss Harper, the science teacher, went silent mid-lesson one day, staring at the mirror like she'd seen something. Then she rushed us out and never taught in 2B again. I decided to figure out what was going on. After class, when everyone left, I stayed in 2B and locked the door. I faced the mirror and stared into it. My shadow was there, but this time, it was smiling. A crooked, lifeless smile without eyes. My heart was hammering, but I held my ground. "Who are you?" I said. My voice echoed in the room, but no answer came. The shadow just tilted its head, like it was listening. Then, a rustling sound, like tearing paper, came from inside the mirror. The shadow raised its hand, as if writing in the air. On the blackboard, without any chalk, a sentence appeared. "You are me." I bolted out and swore I'd never set foot in 2B again. But the shadow wouldn't let go. At home, every time I passed a mirror, I'd catch it. Not my reflection, but the other one. Even at school, in the bathroom or hallway mirrors, those black voids stared back. Worse, I felt myself fading. Sometimes, mid-sentence, I'd lose track of what I was saying for a few seconds. Once in history class, I was answering the teacher, but my voice sounded like someone else's, dry and lifeless, like the shadow's whisper. One night, While doing homework, I heard a screech from my bedroom mirror. I looked up. The shadow was there, but this time it was coming out. Not fully, just a hand, thin, with long, black fingers, reaching from the glass toward my desk. My pen fell to the floor like something had knocked it. I screamed and ran out. When I came back, the mirror was cracked, and a chalky line on my desk read, "It's time. Now, I can't escape the mirrors. Everywhere I go, the shadow's there. In shop windows, car glass, even the blank screen of my phone. It feels like it's pulling me toward it, like it's taking my place." Worst of all, a few nights ago, as I was falling asleep, I opened my eyes and saw my shadow on the wall, but I hadn't moved. It was smiling, and it whispered, "Your turn." I don't know what the shadow is or why it chose me. All I know is that every day, I feel less like myself. Sometimes, I think I'm getting lost in the mirror, like those black voids are swallowing me. If you don't find me in 2B one day, it might be because I'm no longer me. Empty classrooms with trembling lights and lockers hiding sinister secrets. These stories stopped your heart. Ever felt something off at your school? A strange noise in the halls, a notebook that didn't belong, or a shadow you glimpsed for a second? Spill your creepy tales in the comments. I'll read every one, and the scariest might become our next video. If these horrors rattled you, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a school nightmare. Who's next to get trapped in those empty corridors? Stick around. If you got the guts,